Hi, this is Rebecca Pitts, Utah Reflections Board Specialist, and this presentation is Reflections Beyond the Basics. If you are not new to Reflections, this is a great place to start. If you are new to Reflections, I highly suggest that you watch the Reflections Introduction to Reflections presentation before you watch this one. So today I'm going to talk about extra things that you might want to know after you get a basic handle on the Reflections program. We'll talk about entry form problems, the consent form in greater detail, judging, rules violations, copyright and plagiarism, which category is it, and ideas for your launching and celebrations. Okay, so first we're actually going to play a game together. Get your fake buzzer, your fake pointer, prepare a prize for yourself, and let's play. So which category do you think this is? It's kind of a trick question. This could be considered 2D visual arts. Generally, for reflections, the interpretation that we're using is that if the art can be hung on a wall, it can be called 2D art. If it's something you would place on a table, then it's 3D art. In borderline cases, such as this example here, the student may choose. Now, there are some instances where something could hang on a wall where I would not call it 2D art, such as a quilt. I would go ahead and categorize that as 3D art. At the national level, 2D art and 3D art are just called visual arts. And so when I submit my entries to the national level, I have to have our 2D art winners and our 3D art winners judged against each other. So the rules for them are the same. And so for the state of Utah, we've decided to have a little bit of a flexible interpretation of that so that if a student makes a painting such as this and they glue marshmallows or beads or something on it and they want to call it 2D art, that's fine. It is a harder category to win in, so they're not getting an advantage by entering a borderline 3D piece as 2D. But if they wanted to do two pieces of art, one in each category, that might be a reason to allow that. So just deal with it on a case-by-case basis, but generally if you can, let the student go ahead and choose. And if you aren't sure about it, you can ask your council or region chair, or you can even ask on our Reflections Facebook page. Okay, how about this one right here? What category do you think that this is? The answer is that it depends. So a seamless print of multiple original photos can be entered in photography. If the photos are printed individually and glued or taped to a poster board, it must be entered as 2D art. So you can't really tell in this example if this is a seamless print of multiple original photos or if someone took these photos and printed them individually and then taped them or glued them onto a poster board. So if they were glued onto the poster board, it would be 2D art, and if it was a seamless print, then it could be photography. Okay, how about this one? What category do you think this is? This is literature. Literature may have artistic components or drawings, however, only the words will be judged. All right, how about this one? What category do you think this is? This would be 2D visual art. Added words are not allowed in the photography category. If a student wanted to enter something like this in the photography category, you could invite them to reprint it and remove the words. That might be a good idea because they would have a much better chance of winning in the photography category than in the 2D category, which is much more competitive and tends to not be photos. Okay, how about this one? This is made out of fabric. This is one of our state winners this year. This is 2D visual arts. This picture is flat and hangs on the wall. Even though the medium is fabric and there is some texture, it is still considered as 2D art. All right, how about these two right here? If you watched the first class or came to a training, you'll have an advantage here. This is actually a new section. Is a consent form required? So this one on the left is graphic art, one of our state winners, and this one on the right is a self-portrait. Do you think a consent form is required for these? The answer is no. A consent form is only required when there is a recognizable voice or image. So in graphic art, these are not recognizable images. A consent form is not required for the student artist, and we know from the artist statement on this that this is a self-portrait. And her consent from her parent was already given when her parents signed the entry form. All right, how about this painting? Would consent be required for this painting? The answer is that consent would be required if this is a real person. Now, we don't know if this is a real person. So at the local level is the best time to ask these questions and to go and ask and say, tell me about your painting. Is that a painting of someone you know, or did you make it up? And if it's a real person, then ask them to get a consent form. This painting was a National Outstanding Interpretation winner, which is actually the top award that you can get a few years ago. And it was actually painted by my dentist's daughter. So I could find out if it was a real person, but I don't actually know the answer. I never asked. Okay, so is a consent form required for this? The answer is no, a consent is not required because this is not a recognizable image of a person. We can't see her face. We're not sure who it is. All right, we've got a bunch right here. We're just going to talk about them individually. So would a consent form be required for a student who sings a song that he or she wrote? We have an audio recording of a student singing a song he or she wrote. The answer is no, because it was the student artist singing the song, so consent was already given on the entry form. How about a photo of someone's grandmother? Yes, consent would be required for the grandmother because she is not the student. In film production, the student uses a tripod and films his or herself. Is consent required? The answer to that is no, because it is the student artist. The consent was given on the entry form when the parent signed it. How about if a parent plays a piano piece composed by the student? This is an audio recording. All music must be turned in as an audio recording. So the parent plays the piano piece. Would that require consent? The answer is no, because a parent playing a piano is not a recognizable voice or image, so you do not require consent for instrumentalists. All right, this one, realistic painting or drawing of a friend, family member, or acquaintance. Yes, consent would be required if it is a realistic depiction, whether it's painted or drawn or even a photograph. A 2D art collage with photos of teachers, friends, or family. Yes, consent would be required for all of those people, so there would be a lot of consents required, probably several consent forms. What if their friend dances in the dance choreography film recording? Consent would be required because the friend is not the student, so you'd need consent from their parent. And finally, what about an original painting of George Washington? Can you get consent from George Washington? Nope, he's dead. So you cannot require consent for the depiction of someone who is deceased, and consent is no longer required for that. Okay, we're going to talk about some tricky issues now. Entry form problems, plagiarism, copyright infringement and rule violations. We talked a little bit about this in the introduction to Reflections, so I'm just going to go into a little bit more detail and hopefully answer some of your questions. Okay, first we're going to talk about plagiarism. Plagiarism is presenting the work of another person as your own. This applies to words and ideas. The student must cite all sources, even works from the public domain, whether it's protected by copyright or not. Uncited works are considered plagiarism. This includes works found in the public domain because even if the copyright has expired, the student's work could be a copyright violation if copied from a copyrightable photograph, or reproduction of the original. It's important that students are original. So copying the ideas of another person is not original, and that's required for Reflections. Even if the submission were cited correctly and fair use applies, PTA judges would view work unfavorably if it is not original. It's important that you make sure to let the students know that 25% of the points from the judges are based on their artistic merit and originality. So if a student submits something that's not original, it should not be possible for their artwork to win an award of excellence. Copyright infringement versus plagiarism. This can be a really confusing topic. I spent a lot of time studying it, and there's people who have spent an enormous amount of time studying it, and lawyers who only practice this type of law, and even then they don't get to decide if something is copyright infringement or plagiarism. Usually these types of issues end up going to court. And so what we're trying to do is help the students and the PTA avoid liability in the courts if someone were to sue for copyright infringement or plagiarism. Let's talk about copyright infringement. Copyright infringement occurs when a copyrighted work is reproduced, distributed, performed, publicly displayed, or made into a derivative work without the permission of the copyright owner. Copyright infringement is using someone else's work without first getting their permission. Plagiarism is claiming credit for a work you did not author, or using someone else's work without proper credit. So these two things are related, but they're not exactly the same thing. They're both bad. And we want to avoid both of these and help our students to understand the difference between them and educate them. When students unintentionally infringe on copyright, then that's a great teaching opportunity to gently teach them how to avoid that in the future. We're going to talk more about that later here. The only time that it is acceptable to use copyrighted work in photography, literature, film, and visual arts in Reflections is when the copyrighted work is used in such a way that it is incidental or is used to create a new piece of art. For example, a Coke can that happens to be in a photo is different than a Coke can that is part of the purpose of the art. So if a student takes a picture of their kitchen and there's a Coke can on the counter, but the purpose of the photo is, let's say with the theme Look Within, they want you to see within the walls of their home and see the people in the kitchen and say maybe this is the heart of their home and look and see what matters to them. But there happens to be a Coke can on the counter. That's fine, that's incidental. If the student takes a picture of a Coke can and they draw a little image in the middle of the O, a little secret picture, and they're asking you to look within the O and find the image in the Coke can, that is not incidental. That is fundamental to the purpose of the artwork and would not be appropriate. Now, this is a copyright issue, not a plagiarism. They're not trying to make you think that they created the Coke can, that it was their idea, and oh look, I made this new thing, I created this can. They're not doing that. It's copyright infringement. If they wanted to use the Coke can in their artwork and they got permission from the Coca-Cola company in writing and they included that with their art, then it would be okay. It's not usually very easy to get permission to include a copyrighted image in your artwork, but if you can get the permission, it would need to be included with the entry. Okay, this next example. Mentioning a Barbie doll in a story is different than writing a story about a Barbie doll. So a child could write a story for Look Within, and they could have a big long story, and part of it could include saying, and she took her Barbie doll and she threw it across the room. But the story's not about the Barbie doll. It's not really about that. That was just a small part of it. If you could take it out of the story and it wouldn't really matter, that would be a good indication that it's not an issue. But if the story was about her Barbie doll, and that was the whole focus, and the story was my Barbie doll, Barbie, that's not okay. That's copyright infringement. If there's a doubt about it, just tell the students not to do it. Copyright issues are so complicated that when someone sues, they tend to always have to be resolved in court. The artist and the PTA can be held accountable for copyright infringement even if they didn't mean to do it and didn't know that they did it. Okay, so let's play a little game. Is this copyright infringement? This is a 3D art piece that was sent to me and I was asked if it was a problem. And it's so cute. We've got a little guy over here. He's got a little marking on his forehead. Okay, and we've got somebody with orange hair, brown hair, and a wizard. The answer is yes, this is copyright infringement. Names cannot be copyrighted, but characters can. So in that last instance, we had an issue because it was Harry Potter. You can write a poem about a cat named Batman, as long as it isn't about the superhero Batman, but just happens to have the same name. You can name a character Harry Potter, but he cannot be anything like the wizard created by J.K. Rowling. So in that last picture, the student intentionally was creating Harry Potter characters and just did not understand that you can't do that for art without permission from the holder of copyright. And J.K. Rowling is actually a person who sues people when they use her images without permission, when they recreate them. Okay, how about this one? This was also sent to me. So our theme this last year was Heroes Around Me. And someone sent this to me and asked me, is this copyright infringement? The answer to this is yes, it is copyright infringement. You cannot use the Superman symbol intertwined with a cancer ribbon. The Superman symbol is copyrighted. The use is not incidental, it is part of the point. The student should have found another way to represent the concept of hero without using a copyrighted image. Even if you draw it yourself, it is still a copyright infringement. Now, I'm sure we all have great compassion for this student because it's very confusing. And we probably all do this kind of stuff, have done this kind of thing in our lives, doodling, drawing pictures of superheroes and things like that. And this is part of where we have a chance to educate and teach people that we don't actually have the right to reproduce copyrighted images, especially for an art contest. So if someone submitted something like this, it would be a great chance to teach with compassion and explain, because they certainly didn't do it on purpose. Okay, we're going to talk about Legos now. What about Legos? Hot topic for reflections. This example right here of this Lego car built from a kit is technically an example of plagiarism. Kits are not allowed, they are not original, and are using someone else's idea and passing them off as one's own. So you cannot use a kit and build the item from the kit and turn it in as your reflections entry. Okay, we have 6 examples here of Lego art. And I want you to look at each one of them and think about, are any of these okay? Are they a copyright issue? Is there a plagiarism issue? What's going on here? Okay, so first, I think we're going to see the ones that are okay. There we go. So 4 of these were original. They used Legos and they created original art. Now, if your student turned in something that looked like one of these, it would not be original because someone else already created it. But it's totally fine to use Legos as a building medium as long as they create something original from it. Now, obviously, these 2 are a problem, and we're going to talk about why they're a problem. This one right here is actually a plagiarism issue because the copyright expired in 2015. So it is legal if you wanted to reproduce the Scream and sell it on t-shirts, mugs, whatever, that's fine. It's legal now. The copyright is expired. But if a student turned this in for reflections, they would be passing off this concept that someone else came up with as their own, and that's plagiarism. So it's not okay to reproduce artwork of another person and submit it for reflections. Over here we've got a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle, and so that's just simply a copyright issue. It's the student's own depiction of the Ninja Turtle, but it's a copyrighted concept, and it's not okay to do. Okay, so let's look at these common issues and how to deal with them. I'm just going to go down the list and tell you what you would do if you had this issue come up at your school or your council, hopefully not your region, but what to do. So what if you're missing a signature? Hopefully most of you watching this are at the local level. If they're missing a signature, just get it. You can go ahead and have the art judged if you don't have time to get it beforehand, but make sure to get that signature before you pass anything on. Missing a parent email, same thing. You can wait until the judging is over and just check for your entries that you're advancing, but do not pass them on without a parent email. What if the parent doesn't have an email? If the parent doesn't have an email, please put your email and write a little note, specialist. Put a little note somewhere so we know that that's the specialist email, because then it will be your responsibility to contact the parents and let them know if their child won at a higher level, when most of us let people know through email to save time and to save money. That's what most do these days. Okay, what if they are missing? Now this is obviously going to be your responsibility at the local level. What if you don't have the bylaws date, the membership date paid, and the insurance date paid? You really need to get those. You get them from your PTA president, and the treasurer should know these. It's required to be a PTA in good standing that your bylaws are up to date, your membership has to be paid. Every year you have to have made an initial membership payment, and that you have insurance for your PTA. It's a state law. If you don't have these things taken care of yet, that doesn't mean you should give up on reflections, okay? Please contact your region. They will help you, and the state will help you to become a PTA in good standing and to get these things taken care of. But it would be a great idea to get going on it really soon so that it's not a problem. All right, what if they don't have a consent form and it's required? Just please ask them to get one. How about if they don't have the manila envelope? You have 2 choices here. You can ask them to get one, or you can provide one from your PTA, just depending on how you want to handle that. But please do include the manila envelope, because it is used to pass certificates and awards back down, and sometimes notes from judges, and it's a secure way to do it where it won't fall out. What if the photo is too large? If the photo's too large, then just ask them to reprint it smaller if they're a winning entry at your school. All right, what if you find out that the student was not the cameraman? In that situation, you do have to disqualify the entry. Do not give them an award, and educate the child as gently as you can that they did need to be the cameraman. Also, if the student sings a song written by another artist for their music entry, that would also have to be disqualified, and you would have to take the rules and explain to them that the music category is for original compositions and invite them to participate again next year, but you would have to disqualify that. What about when a student dances to a routine learned in their dance class? If you think this might have happened, you might go and ask them and say, hey, tell me about how you made up your dance. And then they might say, oh, well, I learned it in dance class. And then that's also a teaching opportunity to teach them that dance choreography is for original dance choreographed pieces and not for one that someone else choreographed, and you would disqualify it. If copyrighted works are used, if it's possible for them to take it out, then give them a chance to take it out. If it's not possible, you will have to disqualify it, unless we're talking about the categories where they're allowed, such as music, for a dance entry or music in a film, then they are allowed to use copyrighted music and they must cite it. Okay, what if a piece is entered in the wrong category? In that circumstance, you would just talk to the student and help them to move it and put it in the correct category. And what if there's missing PTA information? Again, if you're at the local level, that is your fault. Please fill in the missing PTA information. If you're at the council or region level and you have the time to get them to fill that out, then go ahead and go get that information. But do not pass entries on to the next level that have problems. Get them fixed before they go to the next level. The easiest place to fix problems is at the local level because you are physically close to the students and have easier access to speak to them. Once it gets up to the region and the state level, it's really difficult to go after a missing signature. And at that point, I don't have time to do that. When I receive maybe 700 entries at the state level, I can't go and get a missing signature. So they need to not be passing up the levels if the rules aren't followed. So please fix them at the local level. But it's okay to have compassion when the students turn them in and there's mistakes. It's okay to let them fix them. Okay, so rules violations. There is a rule page for each category. It's a whole page, it's small type. Make sure that you provide that for your judges and that you read it so you understand what the rules are. Let's talk about when to extend mercy. We extend mercy if there's missing information on the entry form. Just go ahead and get that information. If there are problems that can be fixed, then give them a chance to fix them. If the artist statement is missing or the title or needs to be shortened, the artist statement, it's okay to give them a chance to fix that. That would need to be fixed before the judging. If the file doesn't work on the USB drive, give them a chance to give you one that does. If the photo is too large, give them a chance to reprint it so they can advance. And just generally, the rule is extend mercy when you can extend mercy. If you can't because you don't have time or you don't have enough help, then you don't have to. But if you can, please try to go ahead and extend mercy. But do not send entries to the next level with problems. Go ahead and use the student entry form checklist to make sure that you haven't missed anything, because it's easy for us to miss things. Even as I've been going over this presentation that I've looked at several times, I've seen some typos that I missed because our eyes fix things for us. Okay, so when to disqualify. You need to disqualify an entry if there are plagiarism or copyright issues. If there are problems which cannot be fixed. If the student entered multiple entries in one category, they can only have one in each category. Or if the student fails to fix a problem by the given deadline. Those are reasons to disqualify. Okay, now we're going to talk about some entry form problems. It's important that the entry form is placed and the consent form, if needed, is placed in a sheet protector. Tape the sheet protector to a 10 by 13 or 11 by 12, it doesn't matter the exact size, manila envelope, and put the entry in the envelope. If the entry is too big to fit in the envelope, tape the envelope to the back of the art, leaving the opening of the envelope accessible. Why? In this case, the entry form was glued to the back of the art, making it impossible to fold for judging or include a consent form. Okay, here's another problem. You need to place tape along the bottom and sides of the sheet protector. In this case, tape was placed along the top of the sheet protector, making it impossible to remove the entry and consent forms. Place tape along the bottom and the sides of the sheet protector. In this case, it was only placed on one side, and loose edges can result in the sheet protector falling off the envelope and the entry form falling out of the sheet protector. Place tape along the bottom and the sides of the sheet protector. Are you guys getting the message? 2 sides, 1 bottom. In this case, the sheet protector was separated from the envelope during transport because it just wasn't secure and the edges catch on things. Place tape along the bottom and the sides. In this case, the entry form and the consent form fell out during judging because they placed tape along the top and the sides, and this bottom was open. So they taped up the sides that were already taped. So this should have gone the other way so that the top was that way. Okay, what does a judging session look like? You can have an online judging session where you share digital copies of the entries using USB drives or cloud-based file sharing platforms. Be sure to include the title and the artist statements. We did this at the state level this year. We used a website that had a password to get into, and we uploaded entries to that website. We used YouTube, private YouTube videos. We uploaded to that, and that was really convenient for our judges. But it is a lot of work to upload everything, so you need to kind of decide if that's something you have the manpower to do. You can also have an in-person judging session by displaying entries on tables around the room and having the judges move around the room and score each entry. So you could do that at your school or at another location like a library. Another option is to have a traveling judging session. By category, you will deliver the entries to each judge. You'll arrange a time to return and get the entries and scores, and be sure to plan enough time for each of your judges to score each entry. For your judges, you'll want to make up a packet for each judge that includes the judging information and the rubric form found in our handbook, a copy of the official rules and the appropriate category rules for the category they are judging, and a scorecard that lists the entries the judges should score. You can list them either by their title, or you can number them and put numbers on the entries. It's probably a better idea maybe to use painter's tape to number them than to use, I'm having a brain freeze, than to use sticky notes, because those sometimes come off. Before judging, so I was talking about this, assign numbers to each entry. So I wrote on there to write on a sticky note, but we've decided it's better to use painter's tape. Get the scorecard, and you can use the one that we've provided for you or make your own, and fold the entry forms in half so the judges only see the judging information. They don't need to see the student's name and their contact information. Put it back in the sheet protector so they can see the artist statement. Make sure they understand the special artist division. And the judges are not to question whether the student did the work. If they wonder if the student did the work, they can talk to you about that, but they need to judge the work as if the student did it. It is also not the place of the judges to disqualify anything, but they can bring issues up to the reflections specialist. Under no circumstances should the judges' names or contact information ever be given to anyone other than the reflections committee. You can ask arts teachers to help you to identify professionals in your local arts community. Consider local arts agencies, arts and cultural organizations, colleges, librarians, community leaders, and prominent artists as potential judges. You can also use high school students in the arts or honors programs to judge elementary school entries with teacher supervision. It may take as long as 5 minutes to judge one entry, so be mindful of your judges' time and recruit enough judges for categories that have a lot of entries. And we recommend that you have at least 3 judges judge each entry. And every judge, every division needs to have all of its entries judged by the same judge. So they can't just judge part of them. They need to judge all the entries in that age division. Just as a reminder, the judges judge. They do not select winners or disqualify entry. It is the job of the Reflections Committee to invite people to judge. It is highly recommended that you have 2 to 3 judges per category, and if qualified, your judges may judge multiple categories. All the judges must have a working knowledge of their assigned arts area. Parents cannot judge their children's entries. If you have a group of parents from your school who are willing or able to judge, you can try finding a school nearby you that also has parent judges and swap. Try to find a school that has a similar number of entries though, because otherwise it's not really a good swap. Okay, so here are some tips for launching. It's a little late on this one, but launch before the school year ends. If you have access to communicate with your school community over the summer, do a soft launch over the summer. Put it on your social media pages and let them know, because summertime's a great time to start working on reflections. A fun thing you can do is show a cool video. If you search on YouTube, Fox Hills Elementary Reflections, they've made some really neat videos that just really inspire the kids to enter, and they are funny. They use the dads of the children to make really funny videos. Put up posters, flyers, you can do yard signs. Those are available this year to get made up. National PTA made those for us and they're really cute. And then relaunch in the first few weeks of school. You can use social media for reminders during the summertime and during the school year. And you can also network on the Utah Reflections group on Facebook. Okay, so the rest of this presentation is actually information that was shared on our Facebook page. Last year I asked for feedback on things that went well and things that didn't go well, how they recognized the students, how they ran the program, and each person has shared how many entries they had and what level they were at. So what I'm going to do for this is, instead of reading to you, because I'm not really a librarian and maybe you don't want any more story time, I'm just going to pause on each one of these for just a few seconds. And if you want to read it, pause the video and read it, and then hit play, and you can pause on the next one. So here we go. Madeline Moore, Paige Bell, she's a region director, Shannon Bowles, Julie Wilford, Ashley Johansson, here's a picture of, I think, Ashley's display, Heidi Elsasser, Natalie Palmer, Barbara Thornton, Pamela Van Wagener, Megan Garcia, Ashley Taylor, this is a picture from our State Reflections Award ceremony, Amanda Clausen, Misty Morris, Kayleen Hyatt, Sonia Decato. All right, so that is the conclusion of Reflections Beyond the Basics. I hope that you learned something. I know you might have some questions, and I invite you to please ask all the questions that you have. You can contact me by email at reflections@utahpta.org. I also love it when people ask questions on our Facebook page, because then everyone has a chance to learn together and improve our program and support each other, because we're all volunteers and we all do this because we love the children and we understand how important the arts are for the children of Utah. So thank you for being a volunteer, and thank you for watching this training video.